Hi, we are members of the Spiritual Ethical Work Group on behalf of General Schertl for the Commander's Ready and Resilience Council. And Dr. John Kaiser is going to facilitate us this morning on the topic of holistic fitness. Let's introduce ourselves and say why we're here.
So my name is Dr. John Kaiser. I'm the Employee Assistance Program Coordinator and Counselor for the community, as well as the facilitator for the Commander's Ready and Resilient Council as the CR2I, Community Readiness and Resilience Integrator. And so we are here to discuss the holistic health, and this is some background and some research that I've done. So I look forward to having this discussion with everyone.
My name is Chaplain Darren Chester. I serve as the Deputy Command Chaplain at the USER headquarters here in Wiesbaden.
Hi, my name is Patrice Jesse. I work for Army Community Service. I'm the Family Advocacy Program Manager.
And Jeff Dillard, Garrison Chaplain for Wiesbaden. So Dr. Kaiser, or may I call you John?
Please call me John. I prefer that for conversation. So today we're going to talk about what is holistic health, what is holistic fitness, what is holistic healing. Some people hear that word often but don't necessarily know what that means. And so we're going to ask, what is health, what is healing, what are the dimensions of holistic health or healing or resiliency, so that people know what we're talking about here. The Army calls that resiliency. And then what is holistic self-care? How do we take care of ourselves? Why is that important? And then the last question will be, what are the implications for leaders? With the idea that we need to take care of ourselves to be able to take care of other people. So I ask you all the question when we talk about what is holistic health from your perspective?
Well, it's certainly health that focuses on all aspects of the person. So
Yeah.
you think about your physical health, your emotional, mental well-being, your social relationships, as well as your spiritual health. I think those are the four dimensions defined.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
I agree. I think that when we talk about health, we immediately think about the physical health or not being sick. But when you think of holistic health, it just is going to encompass not just the body, but the environment, the relationships, the thoughts and feelings.
Exactly.
The relational health really strikes me because I'm an introvert and I do a lot of admin and I'm in a position of senior leadership, and a lot of times I don't spend time with people all day long, and just hunger for that aspect of holistic health.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting because with Army resiliency, it specifically talks about the physical, emotional, the spiritual, talks about the family, social part of that, and it breaks it down into those 5 different areas. And the idea is to integrate all those areas, not separately, but how we integrate ourselves into all those different areas. So those are the dimensions, and so thank you for talking about the dimensions there. And what would the lack of health look like in some of those areas? Any ideas?
I do, but I don't want to say because I'm guilty of too many of them. Just for example, I can go half the day and drink a lot of coffee and not drink water, which affects my physical well-being, which comes across emotionally and then trickles into relationships. And by the time I get home, I'm tired and can't invest time with my wife as I should.
I think sometimes you feel like you want to achieve a certain balance. You want to have a certain amount of work, and you want to have a certain amount of food, you want to have a certain amount of family time. And when you're not taking care of your whole body, and you do feel that sense of not being balanced that you thought you were going to be able to achieve. So when you don't take care of one part, you kind of neglect that part, and so there's like a trickle effect to other parts that are impacted, or other people that are impacted.
Yeah, it is serious, and if we don't think about these different areas in our life, we do know that on the physical part, on the medical side, if we're not taking care of ourselves, acute diseases, acute illnesses can develop. On the mental side, probably the biggest thing that I see people for in the Employee Assistance Program is stress. And stress is not just an emotional thing, it affects people physically, relationally, both personal and professional relationships. And that prolonged exposure to stress can lead to anxiety and depression. So those are some of the acute illnesses on the mental side. The social distancing, that has a different terminology now with COVID, but when people are isolated from each other, that creates problems in relations. And then even the spiritual part, the alienation from a higher power, not being able to utilize your spirituality to calm yourself, the social connection many people have in our community with the religious aspect, and how we deal with good and evil. That is an ethical issue in our lives. So there can be consequences if we don't focus on the holistic health aspect of it. What about the benefits? Tell me more about some of the benefits from you all.
Well, I think the Army is recognizing this more and more. They just came out with a new FM on holistic fitness that emphasizes the need for all this because of the benefits. They know that retention is better. They know that our hope, our esprit de corps is better. They know that relationships go better. They know that attrition, people getting out of the Army, is less if we're holistically healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think readiness has always been a key word in the military. And when I think about all of those aspects of your holistic health, they contribute to that sort of readiness. You know, as a chaplain, I tend to focus more on the spiritual aspect of holistic health, and I've always wondered, how does that relate to our readiness?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and certainly the spiritual aspect of holistic health can inform how we are ready to deal with hardship. That can also affect how we deal with how our families deal with that hardship, how the health of our families is informed by that spiritual dimension as well. Physically, obviously, as well as mentally, we have to be prepared to deal with that hardship, because we'll certainly be asked to on a regular basis in the military. So it increases one's readiness, resilience, ability to deal with those sorts of hardships that are common in the military lifestyle.
My joy meter is so much higher when I'm holistically healthy. You know, I said earlier that I spend a lot of time alone and I'm an introvert. And when I get out and spend time with people, and my wife, she has told me, do you realize how much you're talking and laughing? Says, what is going on? It's because what I've hungered for more, the relationships are there in the evening on the weekends that weren't there as much than in the duty day for me and my job.
I think that resiliency is really important. That's going to result from the holistic health, because kind of like what you mentioned, Chaplain, there's things that are still going to happen, but our ability to deal with those things and to bounce back from those adversities are so much more easily managed when we're healthy.
Yeah.
And that's the perfect definition of resiliency right there, is that ability to bounce back when bad things do happen, how we frame that, and that the spiritual aspect of that, the book, when bad things happen to good people, how do you bounce back when something bad happens in your family? The reason that holistic health is so important, I'll ask people is, are you just surviving or are you thriving in life? And if you're just getting through life, just barely surviving, there's so much more that you could have in life. And then the thriving part of it, coming out of working in hospitals too, where you see, some serious illnesses sometimes come out of that. How do you thrive? Is it really realistic to think the only time we should thrive in life is when everything's going good in life?
Yeah.
Or how do we thrive even when some bad things happen? And how do we cope with that with our social support system, with people to be able to reach out and get some help? So.
Yeah. That can be a difficult question to answer honestly. We're now a 4-star command community. We're senior heavy. The concern's about a mile wide. So if somebody asks me, how you doing? The standard answer is, I'm great. How are you doing? Well, I'm great too. Well, maybe I'm not great today. Maybe I'm tired. Maybe I just had a root canal, which in fact I did last week. So it can be difficult to be honest about that. But it's important, because I can't move from less healthy to more healthy unless I'm honest with myself and others about the things I need.
That self-awareness is really key. Just like you said, Chaplain, sometimes we just need to realize, we need to do a self-check and realize where we are and how we're doing, and which levels need to be raised, which levels are okay, what do we need to do, and to be willing to do those things.
That's a great point that leads to self-care too. In my practice in the EAP, we use scaling questions.
And EAP stands for?
Employee Assistance Program.
Cool.
So I'm the counselor for civilian employees, for military and civilian family members. And if you don't fall into those categories, we have plenty of resources in the community. And I'm one of those places where you can get those referral resources. But when we know most of us are under stress, and there's good stress, there's bad stress. Bad stress is called distress, good stress is eustress. But if we're overstressed, it affects us in our sleep, in our eating, in our exercising. And those are primarily the three things that we can do to manage stress. And so I'll ask people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how are you doing with your sleeping, eating, and exercising? And I'll also ask them, tell me physically, medically, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? Same thing with spiritual. Same thing with your personal relationships, your professional relationships. So that was a great point that you made, because that helps us assess ourselves, being self-aware, and where to turn to for resources when we need those resources. So
I know you mentioned to me that's an acronym. Patrice was talking about self-awareness and how do you see yourself, sleep, eating, and exercise.
Yeah.
I like that.
Medical Command calls it the performance triad of sleep, nutrition, activity, but C is a great way to kind of make you think, how am I doing today? How am I doing overall in my life in those areas?
I know we want to keep our video relatively brief for others who are busy and may not have as much time as they'd like to view it. So what are some things we haven't covered yet?
Well, the thing I would like to point out, this is the discussion video. There's another video where I give an overview of holistic health and fitness. That is the new FM, used to be physical fitness, now it's holistic health and fitness, H2F. And I encourage you to go to those resources that we've also linked in for you. There's a journal article about meta-analysis of holistic health in the medical practice. We do have an article that was recently done by Emily Jennings in our local community about self-care, and that's great. We've got the behavioral health clinic chief in that article. And there's also a little trifold that makes it really easy just to look at holistic health and fitness in those different areas and what you can do and some of the benefits. And the last thing I would like to say is, what are the benefits of holistic health? So I am an internal optimist, and I always try to find good even when bad things happen. But the benefits of holistic health, and then I'll let you all comment on these. Overall well-being and happiness, illness prevention and longer life, higher physical and mental self-esteem, positive coping after traumatic events when those bad things in life happen, greater social support and less loneliness, decreased suicide and domestic violence, which are called the scourge of our Army right now, and the corrosive aspects of those, greater marital stability and satisfaction, better coping with terminal illness. So those are some incredible benefits, and I just wanted to highlight those, and thank you all for participating, and like to let you have, if you have any closing thoughts.
I think just as we talk about the holistic health, it's easy to still try and categorize those different dimensions of it. Holistically thinking about it means that we understand how each of them relates to the other, and that they're not, you can't divide between the two and just focus on one or the other or two and the neglect of the other two, that they're also intricately linked. Any deterioration or increase in one of the dimensions is going to necessarily affect the
Absolutely.
other three dimensions.
Absolutely.
And so if there might be anybody out there who thinks they could just focus on one or two to the neglect of the others, this idea of holistic health suggests otherwise, that they're all four very intricately related in that way.
Yeah, thank you.
I think as we discussed the performance triad and the things that we need to do, one of the themes that recurred for me was self-care. And I know it doesn't always have a positive tone, because people feel like, who has time to do that? But I just think it's important that we remember that self-care is not selfish, in that it's really important for us. And we sometimes have to think about, what's the implications on those around me, those that I lead, those that I love, if I don't take care of myself.
I really appreciate that. As you were describing self-care, I was thinking about taking a trip in my car, and most of us realize that we need to get our fluids and our belts checked in our vehicle regularly. Nobody would say, I'm just going to drive this thing until it dies. And self-care is a little bit like that. We've got to do some checks. How's my spiritual fluid? How's my relational belts? Because all those things connect each other. And if they're not going well, I'm going to drive myself, pun intended, into the ground, and everybody riding with me is going to suffer. So it's not selfish. It's just wisdom to take care of ourselves, to help our subordinates and our peers take care of each other.
That's a great analogy. I mean, that is, because again, if you're going down the road and you see a warning light go off on your car, you need to pull over and figure out what that is before the car blows up or before it creates a big accident on the Autobahn. And the same thing with what you said, it's almost like a four-legged bar stool. You know, if one of those legs is not balanced right, things can happen.
Yeah.
And there are resources in the community that you can reach out to try to take care of yourself. If you see any of those warning signs, reach out confidentially to the chaplains, to myself. We've got family advocacy here, behavioral health. There's a lot of resources that are out there that if there's some warning light going off in your life, please reach out for assistance in our community.
That's right. And you don't necessarily have to do it here. I'm getting root canal work done at Kaiserslautern because they have a subject matter expert there. And they've got good people here too. By the way, I got to put a plug in for the dental clinic here. They gave me excellent care to include referring me to a specialist. So there's a lot of help out there here in Wiesbaden, other concerns on the economy as well. Yeah. So we're so glad that you were able to join us today. We're going to do this at least once a month on a different topic. We'll have different members of the Spiritual Ethical Work Group join us each time. Let us know if this is helpful to you. If you have particular questions or topics you'd like to see addressed, because this is for you and your Spiritual Ethical Work Group, or your Spiritual Ethical Wellness. Thank you. God bless you.